Chapter 3. Jacob and Thomas Thorland. Jack woke early next morning only to find that Emma was already up and awake. "Wow, you don't mess around, do you?" said Jack, slowly getting to his feet. "Well, we have a big day today, remember?" asked Emma as she packed up her things. "Where do we start, anyway?" asked Jack suddenly, realizing that he had no clue what their plans were. "Firstly, I'll need to go to the village and try find a map or two of the different areas. Otherwise, who knows where we might end up," said Emma as she finished doing up her laces on her boots. "Are you ready yet?" she asked. "Almost," said Jack. "Just let me clean my teeth and we'll be off." "Oh, Jack!" called Simon, coming out of the kitchen. "I want you to take this." Simon held out his hand and was holding a necklace. It was a golden chain, and hanging off it was a tiny sword. It wasn't very big, but Jack stared at it as if it was worth millions. "Mum's necklace," he said softly. "If I can't watch over you, maybe she can from where she is," said Simon, closing Jack's hand. Jack looked into his father's eyes, gave him one last hug, and both him and Emma left the house and closed the door behind them. They both headed towards Wrangleton in complete silence, so that the only sound that was made came from the dirt beneath their feet. Emma was so eager to find out more about Jack's mother, but thought it best if she put it off for a while. "Whereabouts would we find a map around here?" asked Emma while she started darting around in hopes she would see a sign that read "Maps here." This question was just as much a mystery to Jack as it was to Emma. Thought Jack as he too started looking for somewhere that would help. "Let's go this way and see what we find." But within 1 hour of walking hopelessly around the village, their excitement was fading further and further away. "Do you know anyone who might know or even have any kind of map?" asked Emma. Jack thought briefly for a moment, and the only person he knew in Wrangleton was his father, and he was certain he wouldn't have a map of anything. "Sorry, Emma, but I don't really know anybody except my dad, and we can't ask him because he thinks we know where we're going," said Jack, staring down at his shoes. "Maybe we don't need a map," said Emma hopefully. "Maybe we could just head in one direction and hope for the best." "Okay, no offense," said Jack calmly, "but please tell me you're being sarcastic." They both sat down and took off their backpacks, laid down on the grass and stared up at the sky, and then suddenly they heard someone shouting. It sounded as though the voice was looking for someone. "Tom! Tom! Where are you? Mum will murder me if I come home without you again. Tom!" yelled the voice, until finally the boy who was yelling showed himself. "Lost someone, have you?" asked Emma, giggling slightly. "Oh, hello there," said the boy. "Yeah, my little brother Tom. Whenever we're out together, he always decides to take off somewhere." Jack and Emma watched the boy with an unsure look about what to do. "My name's Jacob," he said, as he stuck out his right arm. "Jacob Thorland, and as you may have heard, I'm looking for Tom." "Yeah, I think the whole village is aware of your lost brother," said Jack, smiling. "Well, yeah, you're probably right. He'll most likely get bored with hiding soon and start looking for me anyway. So, who are you guys? Mind if I join you?" Jacob asked as he made himself comfortable on the earth next to them. Jacob was incredibly tall for his age, which was no older than 14, and stood at least a foot taller than Jack. "Oh, silly of us not to introduce ourselves," said Emma as she quickly flicked her hair behind her shoulders. "My name is Anna Datness, and I'm actually from the village of Fronston, just beyond the forest there, and this here is Jack Hart." "Hey there," said Jack simply. Jacob shook both their hands rather excitedly and noticed Jack and Emma's luggage. "You guys going somewhere?" he asked. Jack was about to answer straight away, but then hesitated and looked at Emma. Yes, it was true, they were going somewhere, but had no idea how to get there, nor did they want every person they spoke to wanting to join them. The awkward silence felt like it went on for hours, and just before Jack was about to break it, Emma spoke. "We're going on a quest to look for the lost book of Eurythimus," she said blatantly. Jack put his hand to his forehead and stared at the ground. Jacob, however, looked from left to right, leaned in closely to Emma, and spoke in a whisper. "It exists, then?" Emma's smile widened, and she began to recite everything Jack had heard the day before. "Wow," said Jacob, gazing up slightly into space. "I've heard stories about the Great One from my dad. Back at my house, my parents have a massive book collection. Do you want to go there and see if we can find anything about where the book might be?" Jacob asked all this while staring at Emma and Jack wide-eyed. Emma turned to Jack and nodded, hinting that this was the right thing to do. "We have no other leads," he said, "so yeah, okay, let's go." But as soon as their excitement came, it left again. Jacob froze and then remembered what he was supposed to be doing. In the first place. Tom. "I can't go home without him. Mum will have my head," Jacob said quietly. The three of them agreed to spread out and hope to recover Tom faster than they would if they all stayed together. Jack searched around the area which he lived in and the hill which him and Emma met. Emma was running up and down alongside the river, praying there was no sign of Tom in or around the water, and Jacob scanned behind every box and house, but not one of them was successful. After 30 minutes of endless running around, Jack and Jacob and Emma regrouped in the same spot as before, and by the looks of everyone's faces, Tom had not been found. "Try not to worry, Jacob," said Emma, patting his shoulder. "This village isn't very big at all. He must be around somewhere." "Oh, I'm not worried at all," said Jacob seriously. "It's just extremely annoying that I can't leave the house without him tagging along and disappearing." And just before the three of them were to decipher a new plan, they heard someone giggling quietly. Jack turned his head so quickly that his neck made audible crack sounds. They all stared at each other backwards and forwards, wondering if this indeed could be Jacob Thomas Thorland. At that moment, Jacob slowly began to stand up and move over to the bush where the sounds were coming from with a serious look of anger on his face. He then launched both arms into the bush, struggling for a few moments, and then just as Jack and Em had thought about helping, Jacob pulled out of the bush a small boy. "You waited till I tell Mum what you've been up to again," he said quietly to his brother. He grabbed Tom's shirt by the shoulder and brought him back over to the others. Thomas Thorland was a very small boy with a chubby face and was only 8 years old. He wore a plain, bright yellow shirt with brown shorts. He almost looked someone who belonged to a scouts group. "Guys, this is my little brother, Thomas, but everyone calls him Tom, except for Mum, who calls him Dobby Wobby," said Jacob, trying very hard to keep down a laugh. "They didn't need to know that," shouted Tom at his brother. Emma stepped forward and suddenly brought out her pride and authority again, trying to sound impressive. "Hello there, Tom. My name is Emma, and this here is Jack," she said while casually deciding to grip her sword for the first time all morning. "Hi," replied Tom, staring at the ground. "Right, come on everybody. Follow me and I'll take you back to mine and we'll start looking," said Jacob, helping Emma to her feet. "You're bringing them to ours?" asked Tom. "What for?" "Yes, they're coming back with us, and it doesn't matter to you, so stay out of it, all right?" said Jacob. Straight away, Jack, Emma, and their companions collected up their belongings and made their way towards Jacob's house located on the outskirts of Wrangleton. Since the village wasn't very big, it only took the group around 20 minutes to get there before they knew it, and before they knew it, they were standing on the threshold of the Thorland residence. Jack and Emma stared at the house in shock. For a village that was the size of Wrangleton, the house was twice the size of any other. Tom ran inside the house, screaming and yelling that Jacob had purposely abandoned him completely alone, and Jacob immediately chasing after him, denying everything that Tom was saying at the top of his voice. There was yelling coming from both boys, as well as a woman with a husky voice, which Jack assumed had to be their mother. "How dare you leave your brother lost and alone out there?" shouted the woman. "Oh, Mum, come on," yelled Jack back to his brother. "It's Wrangleton. What could have possibly got him out there? And it was only for 20 minutes. "Not the point," she shouted at her son, pointing her finger. "You'd be surprised what could happen in 20 minutes. Remarkably, the argument went dead quiet, and Jacob suddenly remembered that he had left his 2 friends outside. He looked at his mother quickly and said, "I brought some friends with me, Mum. They want to use the library, if that's all right." The woman looked at him suspiciously, frowning so much her forehead appeared to grow. "Yes, I suppose so. Where are they?" she asked, looking around. "They're still outside. I'll bring them in and let you meet them." Jacob went back outside to find that Jack and Emma had looks on their faces that showed fear and apprehension. "Sounds a bit hectic in there," said Jack. "Oh, don't worry about all that," said Jacob, waving his hand at the house. "Honestly, that happens on a regular basis. But maybe she'll calm down a bit when she sees you guys. Maybe." As comforting as these words were, Jack couldn't help but still feel a bit nervous about the whole thing. But as usual, Emma then picked up her things and said loudly, "Come on, Jack. If you can't face the fury that is Jacob's mother, well, to be honest, you might as well head back for your father's house now. Seriously, there's a good chance we'll encounter a whole lot of other things way worse than this. Up to you." Another awkward silence fell upon the trio as Jack looked from Emma to Jacob. He looked around to his father's house and then to the grey mountains on the other side. Coming to his senses, Jack picked up his gear, smiled, and said calmly, "Lead the way, Jacob."